We are back. Welcome into another edition of Friar Territory. Kyle Glaser here, relaxed, hand, and recharged, ready to talk some trades with you. Joined, of course, by the one and only Mike Cameron. Mike, I was out on vacation for a week. You were up in Cooperstown,
Yeah,
so we're getting
yeah,
inducted to the game. We got to, escape from the world a little bit, but now we're back.
yeah,
2 hours until the trade deadline. It's going to be some wild times. Things are about to get cooking.
yeah. Definitely, we got about 48 hours, maybe 72 hours before this. Everything's. I mean, everything's already been in motion anyway. But it's always interesting for fans to see what they can possibly get to help their team down the stretch. Man, it's always a beautiful sight. You can bring in players that can help you. There's always much buzz and talk. I see the Twitter feed, and everyone has their proposed trades, and they don't even know how it goes behind the scenes. And
The fan
but
proposals on Twitter are maybe my favorite part of deadline action. Some of them are just so funny. I love them.
when the second half started of the season, right after the All-Star break, I said, I put on Twitter, X or whatever it's called. Hey, it's going to be very interesting to see how these fanatics post these trade concepts when they're just dealing with the outside and don't even know what's intertwined on everything that's going on. And then there's one particular site on here that it's an interest to me, because then when you do trade somebody, they have somebody that has made a concept with the value of the trades. And I'm just like, boy, I tell you, everybody got it all figured out. And it's always interesting to me.
The
Always,
rea- the
always, always.
reality is, whenever prospects are involved, we're not going to know if a trade was good or not until 5 years down the road minimum, sometimes even 10 years down the road. Again, it takes a while for things to play out, and there's always a lot of fun stuff. And we're going to dive into all of it. First and foremost, before we get started, I want to remind everyone, go ahead and click that like button, that subscribe button, rate us 5 stars, all the good stuff. It helps us out big time. We are growing, we are thriving, just like the Padres have been recently. We want to keep that momentum going here through the second half into the postseason. Mike, before we talk about individual players, we've got 10 names for everyone to keep an eye on that fit for the Padres, what they need, what they want. There's a lot of players out there. There's a couple of things we have to establish before we talk about what the Padres are going to be interested in, who they could possibly get. First and foremost, the Padres will be buyers, and give them credit. This was not a given. Remember, a few weeks ago, they fell out of playoff position. Their record was starting to move a little more toward the 500 mark. They had a losing June. They got off to an uneven start in July. There was a point where it was like, hey, I don't know if it's going to make sense if they're going to be buyers. And to their credit, they have played very, very well since then. They've won 3 straight. We saw them take a series from the Phillies going into the break. We saw them just split with the Cardinals in St. Louis. They won a back and forth thriller against the Mets last night. They're 58 and 49. They're securely in the third wild card spot, and they've created some breathing room. They've got a 2-game lead. You look at the Reds, the Cardinals, the Giants. So first and foremost, the Padres are buyers. And again, 3 weeks ago, that was not a given. So let's give them credit first and foremost, what they're doing on the field to put themselves in this position.
Definitely. Anytime you go through the strength of your schedule from July, I think, to like August 15th, that really kind of gives you an idea of where you are. But we've known from the jump, Kyle, that the Padres were supposed to be a team that competes for a playoff spot from the beginning of the season. We've had questions as far as, on a certain few players on the team and how it is supposed to add up, to help out to get to that playoff spot. But at the same time, man, like they've been solid. They've battled through some things. The pitching's been good at one point. Bullpen's been very solid for them. It has helped a lot, and that's always going to keep you in games and give you opportunity. And even Tatis had his up and downs, but Manny Machado has remained the pillar of the whole team, in which that makes it so much better.
Again, Tatis, Machado, Bogarts has been red hot. Cronenworth, Arise. We're starting to see the key guys hit, and thus the offense is starting to be more productive. In terms of trades, we do have to keep in mind, of course, the Padres, the financial position they're in, right around that second luxury tax threshold. They do not have a lot of room to add payroll. So any addition, they're going to have to be small commitment salary-wise, or they're going to have to make some moves to free up some salary to go get a player on a larger contract. So we need to establish that this is not a year where the Padres have a bunch of financial room to maneuver with. It's going to be a limiting factor, but could also force them to get creative and do some interesting things. And secondly, this farm system. We talk about trade capital. This is not a great farm system. This is not the farm system the Padres have had in recent years, but it's not a terrible farm system. And what they have a lot of is young pitching, double A and below. And pitching is always the biggest trade commodity. As you know, Mike, we see it every year. And the Padres do have some guys: Braden Nett, Henry Baez, Jagger Haynes at double A, Miguel Mendez, Garrett Hawkins down at Fort Wayne, down in low A, guys like Cash Mayfield, Boston Bateman, Humberto Cruz. Again, whether you want lefties, righties, bigger guys, more projectable guys. But the Padres have a nice collection of arms. And when you have young pitching, you can always make trades.
Definitely. It just to what extent are you willing to give up someone that you know that can possibly help you in a few years? But at the same time, if you have the amount of payroll in your team, you owe it to the city to give yourself an opportunity to go try to win. You just got to get in. And anything can happen once you get in. It doesn't matter who you are. And if you have the type of caliber pitching, a short series, you can do something special. And then you're just back to playing baseball. You're just trying to win a series. And now obviously we know it could be the smallest moves that can help you out down the stretch. And then you just got to have your horses healthy going into a playoff run, man. And anything can possibly happen, man. So, I'm always about I'm always on the same thing as Casey Stern and says, I'm all about parades or prospects. Which one you want to try to do? But you got to give yourself a chance to do it. If you don't, because every year is different, and every opportunity that you get to get a chance to, get in a playoff run and do something special, I just think you should go for it. But you have to be smart about it also.
Yeah, and again, the Padres have made some trades in the past for trading away prospects, some of which have worked out really well for them, and they've made a lot that have actually come back to hurt them. So you always want to be careful, but you understand AJ Preller. Careful is not really in his lexicon. He's going to be aggressive, and the Padres again, they have some trade chips. Again, they also have Leo DeVries and Nathan Salas, their two best prospects. But as I've talked about in previous shows, DeVries is the kind of player you don't move unless it's like an MVP or Cy Young Award contender, and there's no one out there like that this year, excuse me. And Ethan Salas is still recovering from his stress fracture in his back, and teams trading for a catcher with a back injury, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right, we've established the Padres are buyers. They have young pitching to trade in their system. They don't have a lot of financial room to maneuver. What does that actually mean in terms of who they can acquire? There's 10 trade names we're going to monitor. Again, we're ordering them in the impact they would make for the club, kind of least to greatest, if you will. But again, some guys that are having great seasons to get traded and things go sideways. Other guys, they struggle, they get traded, go somewhere else, and it gives them new life. So you never really know. But these are the 10 names that make the most sense. I want to start with Adrian Hauser with the White Sox. Veteran pitcher, was with the Rangers to start the season, opted out of his deal, signed with the White Sox just 1 year, $1.32 million, and has been a really, really effective pitcher for them. 6-2 with a 2.10 ERA. Again, cheap, free agent at the end of the year. We know rentals do not cost a lot. He's someone that the Padres could use. As we've talked about, pitching is not their primary need, but it never hurts to add arms. When you look at cheap, effective arms who are out there on teams that are clear-cut sellers, and there's actually not that many. Hauser's, again, a good pitcher who you can fit in the number 5 spot, even 4 spot if you need, and he could help you out. He's someone that the Padres are not going to be, in on as their primary guy, but as a secondary trade piece or part of a package with someone else we'll talk about in a second. He's someone that is worth monitoring.
Yeah, look, anytime you can get an experienced pitcher and bring him to your ball club, obviously it's going to lift his awareness. For one, when you put guys in the heat, sometimes they respond a little bit different. But in this environment with the Padres, I think it would be very beneficial for Hauser to be on a team like the Padres. That energy, for some reason, man, that energy down from from this point to the end of the season, especially if you're on a playoff caliber ball club, and especially if you're going into a town or a city like San Diego, it could provide a lot of boost of your energy, man, that can help out, especially with a team like this that can use another arm that can help out, and eat up some innings for the team.
If you can be successful in the White Sox organization, you can sure as hell be successful in the Padres organization. Also, especially as a pitcher, guaranteed rate field, it's not an easy place to pitch. You can be effective
No,
there playing with that defense and that
yeah,
organization. You can absolutely be successful pitching in Petco Park with the Padres defense and the Padres organization. All right,
man.
Mike. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like when you come to a situation like the Padres, like it's always beneficial to you. The tough part that you're gonna have to deal with is the internal stuff,
Yeah.
moving your family and everything of that nature or whatever it may be. But when you come to a place like San Diego, it is an environment that's created for you to be successful, especially one any pitching type of person is going to obviously is going to make your mind just feel a whole lot better about throwing maybe that 94-mile-an-hour fastball in 3-1 opposed to you did when you was in guaranteed rate in Chicago.
Yeah, no question about it. So Adrian Hauser, kind of a back end rotation candidate to watch. That would probably be part of a trade package with someone, a bigger name we'll get to in a few minutes. Another guy I want to keep an eye on is Willie Castro with the Twins. We started to see his name surface in trade rumors a little bit. I mentioned him a few weeks ago. This is one of the better bench guys in baseball. And we've talked about the Padres bench needs a lot of help. Bryce Johnson, to his credit, has stepped up and is actually hitting really well for the Padres right now in left field. He's a good fourth outfielder type, but look, Jose Iglesias has not really cut it on the infield. He's had some moments, but it hasn't been great overall. Tyler Wade certainly has not been performing that well in the infield. Willie Castro is an effective player in the sense, look, he's hitting 252. He's got 10 homers. He's got 8 steals. There's some power there. There's some speed there. And he's played 7 different positions. And this is what he does every year. He plays 6 different spots, 7 different spots. He's a switch hitter. He shows you the ability to hit for average. There's some pop in there. He had a 33 steal season a few years ago. This is one of those nice, good, solid players. And again, free agent at the end of the year, a bench guy is not going to cost a whole lot, but he's someone that would represent an upgrade for the Padres. And again, whether it's part of a package deal or kind of that third move you make, to wrap up a deadline, he is someone to keep an eye on. That would be a really good fit for the Padres just to help their bench.
Hey, this is one of my favorite players. I mean, when I say favorite, by what he's able to do on a baseball field.
Yeah.
He came up with my kid in Detroit,
Yep.
switch hitter,
Yep.
can play all over, can play every day if needed be at one position. But his value, man, like that is one player that I think everyone would want on their team. If I'm not mistaken, he has probably about 2 or 3 more years of control. So you're probably going to end up giving up a little
No,
bit more for
he's
a
a
guy of
free
this
agent. He's a
caliber.
free agent. He's a
Oh
free agent
wow,
this year. So that's
I
where the
didn't.
cost, and we see all the time, rentals just do not cost a whole lot at all.
Yeah,
If you can
yeah,
get a good player
yeah.
of this caliber at a fairly low cost because he's a rental, that's a huge, huge upgrade to your bench. Excuse me.
That would be special. That would be special to have a player like Willie Castro because not only you can get him here for this year, I mean, you can pay him a decent amount. You can have this guy on your team
Yeah.
for years to come. I
Yeah.
mean, he doesn't get hurt. He's always available and he's always productive, man. He plays. Everyone say he plays the game the right way. The guy is a baseball player. He understands how to play. He can do all the little things on the field, and he also have big play capability at times. He can play center field. He can play shortstop for you in a pinch. He can play first base. He can play third base. He can play left field. He can do it all, man. I love Willie Castro, man, because he brings his bag of tools to the yard every single day.
Yeah, no question. Again, a guy who's not the biggest name out there, but one of those upgrades that absolutely makes your team better, makes your bench better, just can help lengthen the lineup a little bit too. Again, it's not like he's an all glove, no bat guy by any means. So
Oh no,
a lot of things to like there. All right, Mike. So we've talked about, kind of the back end rotation help, the bench help. I want to get into some of the bigger names with you here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll jump right into it.
Kratz, at some point, we're going to laugh about how healthcare was so reactive and not proactive. And we're starting to change that with Superpower. They believe every human has 100+ year potential. and they're here to help you get there. I'm a big believer in this. I just started the journey, so I'm excited about it. And what do you think?
As a player, you're always looking ways to improve yourself, improve your health. And this is an easy way. Superpowers made it way easier than when I was playing. You had to go get all these lab panels, and it was a long, drawn out, expensive process. But now with Superpower, so this is awesome for me. I'm excited about it.
They'll send a licensed professional to your home, or you can visit a nearby lab. For a limited time, the FT fam can get $50 off an annual Superpower membership by using code FOUL at checkout. Just head to superpower.com and use code FOUL to get our exclusive discount. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and please support FT and tell them we sent you.
All right, Kyle Glaser alongside Mike Cameron here breaking down 10 trade names to keep an eye on for the Padres this deadline. We've talked about Adrian Hauser. We've talked about Willie Castro. Now we're going to head into some of the guys that are bigger names. Again, different contract situations, different levels of performance, but guys that nonetheless should be talked about and discussed because the Padres are going to think big. They're going to explore all possibilities, and these are guys who fit their needs, and whether it's name value, trading partner frequency, they're certainly on the table. Mike, there's two outfielders who are all-stars at their peak. That is their talent level. But they're having really difficult years this year. Brian Reynolds with the Pirates and Cedric Mullins with the Orioles. We've talked about the Padres have a need in left field. Reynolds and Mullins can play really all three outfield spots. You can move them around. And once again, these are impact players at their best. But neither of them are having good years. Both of them have been hovering around 200 all year. The on base, the slug, none of it's been what it usually is. Different contract situations. Cedric Mullins is a free agent at the end of this year. He's a rental, so he wouldn't cost a lot. Brian Reynolds is a lot trickier. He's in the midst of a long-term extension. He signed with the Pirates. He's still owed $70+ million over the next 5 years. So that would require a fairly sizable financial commitment and some financial maneuvering on the Padres' part. Generally speaking, what are your thoughts about the idea of buying low on someone you know is talented but is having a tough year, and if that'd be a fit for the Padres, something like a Reynolds or a Mullins?
I like both. I think Cedric is more of a true center fielder.
Yeah, he is.
So, that would be kind of pushing it to put him into that left field spot. But you could talk to him and see what he feels about that, especially coming to a situation where you have a chance to win or get into the playoffs. I would probably and then you have to deal with the financial aspect if you're talking about Reynolds. And also he has like these, I think he has like a lengthy situation where he can void going to these certain teams.
Yeah, he has the no trade. He has the no trade list, and the Padres are reportedly on that. So again, we've seen players, make changes to their no trade list. Anything can happen. That's why I debated whether to discuss him in this. But realistically, look, the Padres and Pirates love trading with each other since Ben Cherington got there. The Pirates have been the Padres' most frequent trade partner. And again, realistically, between the money, between the no trade clause, between the commitment in terms of years, it's probably not going to happen. But I want to at least bring him up. Mullins is an interesting case because you're right. A lot of his value is tied to the fact that he's such a good defensive center fielder, but he's a good enough athlete where you can see him moving around. And again, even in this down year, right? There's 15 homers, there's 14 steals. He's still, above average OPS plus. Like there are good things happening. And look, you could say, hey, you can play in Baltimore for a losing team that is frankly all sizzle and no steak. They talk a big game, but they're not winning because they don't invest in pitching. Or you can come to San Diego, move to left field for 2 months and be part of the playoff run. I think a true competitor, and we know Cedric Mullins is certainly a true competitor, so I'm like, sign me up. So I think of these two, Mullins would be the one. He also is not going to cost a lot as a rental.
No doubt about it. And considering that you just brought it up, the Orioles, they drop the ball on getting the pitching that they need, but maybe some younger arms that can help out would be beneficial to them in that sense. Reynolds, I just think he needs a change of environment, man. He's a good player, and sometimes
talk about organizations
it's even as a competitor, if you're 20 games under 500 every single year that you go out and play, it just kind of does something to your mentality. You got to do so much to get yourself ready to play baseball on a daily basis. And I think, from Reynolds' perspective, I think a change of scenery will, give him a new form of life, and also a new form of urgency to be more focused on what you're doing. I mean, it can go wrong in many aspects, but in this case, I think Reynolds is a good enough player that he could bounce back and vault your team and help your team win some games for 2 months down the stretch, man, to get yourself to a playoff run.
And I agree with that. I just don't think it's going to be with the Padres, given the Padres would have to make some big financial moves. And if you're going to make some big financial moves, there's other players you would prioritize bringing in and taking on salary than Brian Reynolds, given the down year. I also think it's an important point to bring in some other outfielders that have been talked about that just are not available. We're not going to talk about Jaron Durant. We're not going to talk about Kyle Stowers. We're not going to talk about Brent Rooker, who's a DH. These guys just aren't available. Stowers is not available. Rooker's not available.
Yeah.
Durant's not going to be available
Yeah.
to the Padres. The only way the Red Sox trade him is for a controllable mid-rotation starter who's young. Padres don't have that guy. It's not a fit. So,
Yeah.
you know, these guys they're not realistic. And again, Reynolds probably falls into that for those reasons, but I wanted to bring him up just because, again, there's a need, the Padres, Pirates, trade frequency. But if we're talking about outfielders you're banking on to bounce back, Mullins would be the guy to acquire. Mike, we've talked a lot about catching being the Padres' number one need. Of course, Elias Diaz, has a walk-off, RBI last night to say, hey, don't forget about me. But we know that upgrading behind the plate is probably the biggest need for the Padres, just offensively. You can't have that hole at the bottom. Ryan Jeffers of the Twins is an interesting catcher. Again, not the biggest, sexiest name out there, but he's had some productive years. You talk about guys hitting in the 250s. He's on pace for a 12 to 15 homer season. He's a good defender. There are things to like there. And again, he's not a pure rental. He's ARB eligible after this year, so he would probably cost a little bit more. But again, when you talk about catcher upgrades, there's really only two catchers out there on teams that are going to be sellers, and the Padres need to be exploring both. Jeffers is the first one.
Yeah, look, I like Ryan Jeffers, one, because he has playoff experience. So he understands that particular part of it. And look, Ryan Jeffers is, I think a few years removed from having one of his best seasons. So it's just a matter of you're getting the guy of this caliber, then you have to make sure that you're willing to maybe address it even farther after the season is over with, because this is a guy that could possibly help your team, in the future. So and he's a quality guy, that is behind the plate. And one of the biggest things for me is when you acquire some guys that have some experience and playoff experience, they're not overwhelmed by the idea of going to a place and the energy is a little bit higher and get a chance to experience that. Like I said, I never got traded in the middle of a season, but anytime I got traded in the off season, first thing I did was look at the roster and see what was going on and see how it was coming along and how am I going to fit in or whatever. So this is one of those chances to get a backstop man that has experience and definitely could help your team in a big way down the stretch, considering you're not getting much offensively from your catchers right now.
Yeah, Jeffers has been above average offensive player 3 straight years. I mentioned he's ARB eligible after this year. He's under team control the next 2 seasons, wouldn't be a free agent until 2027. So look, you're getting a two-way catcher, team control, has playoff experience. And if the Padres wanted to think big, the team that actually fits the most in kind of a big multiplayer package situation is the Twins. If the Padres wanted to get super aggressive and do a big trade to try and address all their needs at once, go get Ryan Jeffers, Willie Castro, Harrison Bader. You might have to trade, 5 guys for a 3-player package. But I mean, that would be like, hey, if you just want one swoop, hit all our needs, the Twins are actually the team that has that kind of personnel to do that. So I think Jeffers is certainly a guy that would be a good fit for the Padres. Mike, going back to left field, if I were to ask you, which of these left fielders is having the best season, or I should say, which of these outfielders is having the best season? Between Cedric Mullins, Brian Reynolds, Luis Robert Jr., Taylor Ward, and Ramon Laureano, I think 99 out of 100 casual fans would not say it's Ramon Laureano, but the answer is Ramon Laureano. He is having a
Yeah, he is.
fantastic season with not a lot of
Yeah,
love given to him. Veteran,
yeah,
we know he can do some crazy things defensively. When he's right, he can hit. And
yeah,
when we talk about rent, I mean, again, another rental, and we see no matter how good rentals are, you just don't have to pay a lot for rentals. We've seen that already this year. We can talk about the Naylor deal and and the Chris Paddock deal in a second, two ex-Padres who've been traded, but both those trade costs are something the Padres can absolutely match. And Ramon Laureano is a lower profile player than both of those. So I actually think of all the guys we're going to talk about, while Ramon Laureano is not the highest profile name, if you were to ask me outside of, among all the outfielders, who should the Padres go get in left field? Ramon Laureano is the answer to me when you look at he's productive. He's not going to cost a lot in terms of money, and he's not going to cost a lot in terms of prospects. I actually think this is the outfield the Padres should go get, and I actually think they should have gone and gotten this done a week ago, but no one asked me.
Look. Ramon Laureano is the reason why my kid couldn't survive in Baltimore. I didn't think that, like I was like, man, like they needed a backup center fielder. And me just watching the game, and it's like Laureano has been very, 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 very beneficial for the Baltimore Orioles. And I think that this is probably the best fitting piece for the Padres right now, because Laureano can run. He's got some power. He can sub on a couple of days or two in center field. I wouldn't put him out there no more than that, but he can play left and right field.
Left,
He's done
do it all.
Yeah, he's done a tremendous job for the Orioles, man, and kind of kept, just that team for his offensively outfielder. He's been the one that's been the best one out there on a given basis and given his situation. And he understands how to play when you're not playing every day. And given a situation, this is give a chance to vault himself back in the talks of outfielders overall, where it gives him opportunity to do some things to finish out his year on a playoff caliber team down the stretch, and put it together for a job for next year, because I think he's on a 1 year deal there. And so that will be beneficial, very beneficial for the Padres to get a player of this caliber.
Yeah, no question. Again, not the biggest name, not the sexiest name, but when you look at what actually matters, the production, he's the guy who probably fits the best. And Mike, that leads me into two other outfielders who are bigger names, who, again, have things to offer the Padres, but would be more expensive financially and most likely in prospect cost too. Again, for potentially lesser production. And I group these two together for different reasons. Luis Robert Jr. with the White Sox and Taylor Ward, outfielder with the Angels. I want to start with Taylor Ward. Again, it's a low average, low on base percentage. The effort and energy level is not always what you want to see, but what he does is bang. Taylor Ward has 25 home runs, which would lead the Padres. The Padres do not have a single player with 20 home runs this season. Not Machado, not Tatis, not Merrill.
Yeah.
The Padres need power, and they need right-handed power specifically to counter the lefties who, for the most part, have been carving them up this season. So, again, Taylor Ward has his flaws, but when you consider left fielder with real right-handed power, and look, multiple years of solid production, he's not a superstar, but when he's right, he can give you 240 with a 330 on base and 20 to 30 bombs a year. That's a productive player and an upgrade for the Padres. He signed through next season. He's making under 10 mil. So you prorate it, this year it'd be a couple $1 million. So the Padres could swing it. I mean, look, we see him a lot out here on the West Coast. What are just real quick your thoughts on Taylor Ward and his fit with the Padres?
Well, look, I like Taylor Ward because he brings that added thump that you need. And plus, I mean, he's already on the West Coast. He plays on the West Coast, so he stands like the Marine layer, per se, if you're talking about that. But he's solid. He gives you some quality. He's very, very, very adequate in left field, and he could definitely help out if you're looking for that right-handed pop. It's considering that the Padres have struggled against left-handed pitch a whole lot. I mean, this guy can definitely do it. And then look, he understands, has experience in playing every day. So,
Yeah.
you won't miss a beat by throwing him in your lineup and just throwing him there maybe in the 6-7 hole and letting him go out and do his thing, man. And it definitely adds some length and some strength on up, as you continue to go down the stretch.
No question about it.
Yeah, I think he has a little bit of a swing and miss issue or whatever, but you're willing to give that a run for the power that he's able to provide. And look, anytime, once again, I'm gonna keep saying this, anytime you pick up a guy and you put him in a place where the energy in the ballpark and on an everyday basis and the urgency of the team, your mentality and your mind and your focus increases tremendously.
No question about it. And again, as we know, the Angels are the team with the longest playoff drought in Major League Baseball, which kind of blows your mind. You think about teams like the Pirates, the Marlins, et cetera, that have made it more recently than they have. I think with, Taylor Ward, again, he's not a perfect player. When anytime you have that uphill swing he has, you're going to get some strikeouts. You're also going to get some homers. So he'd be a good addition for the Padres. Again, he's ARB eligible after this year, under team control next 2 seasons. So not a pure rental, which means he'd probably cost a little more, and his productivity, he'd cost a little more, but the Padres could certainly swing it. Mike, the other outfielder that is probably the most oft mentioned name on the trade block right now is Luis Robert Jr.
Yeah.
This is a very enigmatic player. So I think it's important to establish Luis Robert Jr. is a physical freak who, Lord knows, looks the part. He's looked the part since I saw him in Winston-Salem covering him in the minors.
Yeah.
But the hard truth is the reputation has exceeded the production. If you look over the course of his career, the production's been getting worse and worse every single year. And for all his, Adonis-looking strength and power, whatever, it's a career 258 with a 313 on base. His slug's only in the 450s. It's not like this is a 500, slug guy. I mean, he's been honestly just kind of a little bit above league average hitter. He can run, he can play defense, but the other issue is the injuries. He is constantly hurt. We've even seen it recently. He just sat out 2 games with adductor soreness. He came back, got hit on the hand. X-rays were negative, but there's always something. So I think on the one hand, you see, oh my God, Luis Robert Jr., all-star, down ballot MVP votes. That's happened once in 6 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you on Luis Robert Jr. and how much value he would actually provide to the Padres? And he'd be a guy you have to move from center to left, which again, a lot of his value is tied to his center field defense. Where are you on Luis Robert? I think that, again, the reputation exceeds the actual production.
This is like one of my dream players, because of what he presents physically. And it's so hard to get a read on a player of this caliber because, he stays hurt all the time. And, availability is the best ability, considering he stays hurt at a fairly young age. A lot of leg things. But he does have 26 stolen bases this year. He seemed to be healthy enough to go out on a daily basis out there, but I just don't know where his mind is as far as, you bring in a player of this caliber in, it will almost be like a project. He definitely has a talent. And then I look at it like this sometimes. A guy, La Pantera, that they call him, the Black Panther.
Great nickname, one of the best in baseball.
Yeah. If you bring him over here with El Nino and you bring him over here with Manny, is this going to help? From the Latin sense of guys, guys that are special players already on the team that can help a guy like this transform into becoming what he's really supposed to be, what we saw in AAA, and I think what we saw in 2020s, per se. But the biggest thing is, the biggest thing is just health. He does hit lefties very well, though. So there's another aspect that you can help out in that sense. But that's one of them I will be a little bit gun shy in, because I feel like it's more of a project, and right now we don't have time for projects. Going into down the stretch, man, we get some things going, and we need to be in health. Also, I think that Luis will definitely he would definitely, it would be a help for him for a change of scenery.
No question.
Like I said, we see him starting to get rolling around a little bit, and he could probably be helped out by a new hitting philosophy, new voices
You mean a hitting
that can help
philosophy
out.
that actually makes sense and covers the basics? The White Sox don't teach. I even have one front office
Yeah,
official, regarding like Gavin
I
Sheets
mean,
acquisition. White Sox just don't do it right. Like it's basic stuff. They just
yeah,
don't do it.
yeah. I just think that it could help him. My biggest thing with me bringing in Luis Robert was like, how are your legs? These little
Yeah.
nickname injuries that took him out for 2 weeks and everything, and sometimes a
Hamstring,
couple of months.
adductor,
And
yeah.
the leg injuries at a very young age, man, are can be traumatizing to a team, especially if you go out and trade for a guy like this and you're expecting something and then it just doesn't go well. We know that everyone has a possibility of getting hurt, but
Yeah.
he seems to get hurt a lot more. And look,
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to tell you, look, San Diego preserved my body because of the weather. It actually added a few years on me or whatever. And possibly if you look at it from that perspective and knowing that you're going to get him for more than 1 year, then it probably could solve a few things. And then you got to check his ego as far as where he is moving from center field, where you already have a center fielder there, a Gold Glove center fielder.
Yeah.
And you're putting him in left field and see what he feels about that in that sense.
Yeah. So Luis Robert, and I said this for weeks, and I maintain it. It just depends on how the White Sox view him and what they want for him. So Luis Robert he's on $15 million contract this year. Padres would potentially owe a prorated portion of that, 6, 7-ish, somewhere in there. Then he has 2 team options for the next 2 years at $20 million each. Realistically, you don't pick those up. The health, the production just has not been there. Even with his hot surge since coming off the IL, he's hitting 202 with a sub 300 on base, and he's only slugging, under 350. Like this is just not a productive player. The production's getting worse every year. So if the White Sox trade ask for Luis Robert is viewing him as the all-star he was 2 years ago and saying, well, he has multiple years of control left because you can pick up these team options. If they're asking for a package that you would ask for, an all-star caliber player with 3 years of team control left, the Padres should not pay that price. He just has not been worth that, his production and the risk of his injuries. If White Sox are willing to view it as he's a rental because you're not going to pick up the team options and they just want to move the money and start over and maybe take a lesser trade, then it makes sense for the Padres to do it. Again, if this is a buy low rental price, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
If this is a all-star with 3 years of control price, just pass. That's really where it is with Luis Robert. So we'll see. Again, the White Sox so far have been asking for the all-star with 3 years of control left price. They're not going to get that from anyone. We'll see if they lower that as we get closer to the deadline, but we'll see what happens. All right, Mike, we've talked about 8 players that fit the Padres so far. We've got 2 more, and these are the 2 guys who probably would have the biggest impact on the team, the guys would make an impact. But the money's a question. We're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then we will jump into those final 2 players.
Nothing, and I mean nothing, beats relaxing on a hot summer day and watching baseball. And the simplest way to get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for some big cash prizes. Nail your picks, and you're heating up. Pick 6 brings upside with payouts up to 500 times. Pick 6 from DraftKings is the most fun way to play fantasy sports. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL for new customers to get a special sign-up offer. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, welcome back to Friar Territory. Kyle Glaser, Mike Cameron with you, breaking down the 10 trade names to watch for the Padres. Mike, we've talked about a lot of talented players. There are 2 at the top of the list for the Padres that fit what they need, but are owed fairly substantial salary commitments. So in order to make these happen, the Padres would have to move money. And what that realistically means would be spinning off Dylan Cease and clearing his salary, and then using the money on one of these two players. Whether that's wise or not, that's a whole nother episode. So we can get into the merits of trading Dylan Cease again. I think that's a separate episode, but just in terms of what it would require to get these two players. I want to start with Mitch Keller with the Pirates. Mitch Keller, very quietly, has been one of the better pitchers in baseball over the last few years. He's durable. His ERAs are consistently, mid to low threes. He's got real stuff. He's just been lost in Pittsburgh. And he is rightfully one of the most attractive trade pieces on the market. We talk about the Padres, their primary need is not pitching. But if they decided that Mitch Keller would be an upgrade over Dylan Cease, and he actually would be given their production this year, and the fact he's under team control for a few more years, he's on a contract extension, and the Padres need long-term pitching. And again, the Padres and Pirates love trading with each other, and do not underestimate that. Just like any other business, relationships matter in negotiations. And the Padres and Pirates have a very, very productive communicative relationship. And I promise you, trades are not made in a vacuum where it's like, oh, this player for this player. Like those relationships between the GMs and the people negotiating matter a lot. So I think it's important to present Mitch Keller as an option because the Padres could use him. They would like to have him. This is a frequent trading partner. It just gets complicated because, again, realistically, you'd have to trade off Dylan Cease to clear up enough money to go get Mitch Keller and fill that payroll this year. What are your thoughts on Mitch Keller, how he fits for the Padres, and if such a move would make sense for them?
Well, as you stated, Mitch Keller is a consummate pro, and he always a fit for everyone, every particular lineup that you every pitch staff that you can throw out on a major league roster. And so, as you said, to get a guy of this caliber, then you're probably going to lose one of your guys. And as you spoke on it, it'd be probably Dylan Cease. And that makes for a very crazy exchange as far
to be
as
clear, Cease would
prospect.
go to a different team. Cease would go to a different team in a different move where they spin him off to someone else, get what they can for him. It's more about clearing the payroll and then use the open payroll space to go get someone else. In this case, Mitch Keller. It wouldn't be Cease to the Pirates. It would be Cease goes somewhere for some prospects. Maybe the Padres use the prospects they get in that deal, move them over to the Pirates. You can do a 3-team deal. You can do a lot of different things, but realistically, take on Keller's salary, you'd have to shed Cease's salary.
Yeah, definitely. But when you bring in Mitch Keller, you're gonna have a guy that's gonna be a solid rotation contributor for beyond this season. And so it's just a matter of you're really willing to give up the capital in prospects to be able to bring in a guy of this caliber, man. So we don't know, like sometimes things disrupt a staff or a team if one piece is pulled out, but insert someone that's good. I think it always balances out all the time, more likely than any time. And a guy like Mitch Keller, I mean, coming out of Pittsburgh, I know it's a beautiful ballpark, but their record is what it is. I mean, guys like to play on winning baseball teams, and sometimes when you do that, you bring the best out of players. You put them in positions to have opportunity to win. So it could be something that could really be something to look at, man. And once again, it's just a matter of how much. If I'm pretty sure if the Padres are looking to get Mitch Keller, then I'm sure other teams are too. That could raise the value as far as like what do you have to give up in capital, in prospects, or whatever it may be.
Exactly. And that's part of the issue here. The Dodgers, the Yankees, other teams who could use starting pitching. It's crazy to say the Dodgers could use it, but if they decided they want someone who's actually durable and has thrown 190 innings, they could do it. The point is those teams have more to offer than the Padres. So again, realistically, I don't see this happening just because it's going to be a very, very competitive market for him. Too many things would have to happen for the Padres to be able to actually acquire him. That said, he's a really good pitcher. I probably overstate it when I say he's been one of the better pitchers in baseball. Over the last 4 years, his ERA, it's been more low fours than, mid to high threes, but the stuff is legit. He's durable. He posts. And I do think that if you get him out of Pittsburgh, he would take a jump just like we saw Garrett Cole do, Tyler Glasnow do, and of course, Joe Musgrove do. So again, he's a really talented pitcher. He would help the Padres, but again, it would be tricky to make that happen. And frankly, Dylan Cease has just not been good this year. He would be an upgrade over Dylan Cease, but again, there's too many moving pieces. And that brings me to the number one player on the Padres 10 names to monitor, the guy that would solve so many of their problems and would be the biggest addition to their team and is on a team that is in a position to sell. It's just about if they can make the money work. And that is Sean Murphy, catcher for the Atlanta Braves. People who hear the show, watch the show, are probably sick of hearing me talk about him. This is a 826 OPS, 16 homers, splitting time with Drake Baldwin. One of the best defensive catchers in baseball. The arm is insane. He knows how to handle stuff, receiving, blocking. You talk about an elite defensive catcher who with an 800 plus OPS, 20 homer threat every year, under control for multiple seasons, 3 more seasons after this. He fits everything the Padres need organizationally this year and in future years. Right-handed power, catcher, he's got it all. And look, the Braves having as good as Sean Murphy is, Drake Baldwin's homegrown. He's been fantastic. It doesn't make sense for the Braves to keep a part-time catcher on a $15 million a year contract. It just doesn't.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is the situation where if the Padres can make the money work, he's the guy. But in order to make the money work, again, this is what you have to. Dylan Cease would have to be spun off to another team to clear the space, and then you bring in Sean Murphy. And it's tricky. The Padres would have to get really, really creative. But if they can, this is the guy. This is who should be number one on their list of guys they want to target. This is who they should be most aggressive in going to try and get. It's just going to be if they can make the money work.
Yeah, look. He's in his year 30 season.
Yes.
But this would be a guy that the Padres could be a stepping stone for the future for them, but also giving a backstop that is experienced in championship caliber ball club, playoff caliber ball club. He's a great defender. He's a really good hitter. Had a few injuries here recently. The reason why Owen has been able to kind of jump in there in the lineup a lot more. But this guy's experienced. This is really, as you said, this is what you need. He understands how to handle a pitching staff, a championship caliber staff. He's very good defensively. And we've seen, and possibly, I don't know if we've seen the best of him offensively, but he still has the ability to put up some very hefty numbers, considering, especially as a catcher, man. Like, this is a guy that can definitely benefit from moving from Hotland to San Diego, man, back on the West Coast, where he's experienced that also, with him playing in Oakland for 4 or 5 years. This could definitely help out a ball club, definitely get a chance to help, some of the younger catchers in your organization also. And for the next 3 or 4 years, like you can have a guy like this that can really be beneficial for your team.
And again, yes, he's in his age 30 season. He signs for his age 33 season. I'm not worried about the age at all. Up through age 33, position players are still productive. It's when you get 34, 35, 36, things are a little shaky. He's had some injuries, but again, even with those injuries, he's still been one of the best catchers in baseball, one of the best two-way catchers in baseball throughout most of his career. Again, last year, he got hurt. He struggled this year. He is in a slump right now, so his numbers have come down a little bit. But even with that, still an 813 OPS. He's still able to go yard at any time. And again, you talk about right-handed power, catcher who gives you a backstop you can count on, not just this year, but next year and the year after and the year after. The Padres need that. Ethan Salas is hurt. You don't know what his situation is going to be. Catching prospects are very, very fickle. They're, young catcher stagnation syndrome is a very real thing. This is the guy who helps them now in the future, the right-handed power. It's all there. It's just a matter of making the money work, and we'll see if they're able to do it. All right, Mike, we have gone through 10 trade names to monitor for the Padres, AJ Preller will be aggressive. No player is off the table on their current roster, on rosters he's going to be talking to other teams about, thinking big, being aggressive. That's his style. So we're going to hear so many, Padres have had discussions about XYZ. No player should surprise anyone. It's funny to me, people are surprised about Padres having discussions. Dylan Cease has come up in trade talks. Everyone on the Padres roster is open in trade talks. There are no untouchables with AJ Preller. So I think it's worth noting the Padres are going to do something. And that leads me to my next question. Of all the guys we talked about, what is the move that you think would benefit the Padres the most?
I think it definitely will be the catching aspect. We've been fighting to get a piece in left field, to solidify some things in the outfield or whatever. But I think they've been able to kind of mix and match a little bit to do that. But the catching position, where it not only helps you this year, but it helps you in the next couple of years, is probably the more beneficial thing. And as far as Murphy's production, you get him at a fairly decent price too.
Two-way catchers are $50 million a year. That's a great contract.
Yeah, definitely, man. And once again, I'm a very big component of San Diego because of what the weather does and allows you to preserve your body. And this will help. I played with one of my all-time favorite guys, Mike Piazza, and San Diego was very beneficial and good for him too. And so, at the age of 34, 35 when he came over. So, man, like it's one of those places, man, and you get the same energy that you get from, here in Braves country, you will get in San Diego, especially because you're going to be in a position to compete for a playoff spot year in and year out. And it's just not going to happen for the Braves this year. So they're going to have to do some things, and this opens up the opportunity for the Braves to put Baldwin in play. And it also gives Sean Murphy a chance to get back to the everyday routine and be able to lead a staff into a playoff caliber position.
Yeah, no question. I think for me, the move that would benefit the Padres the most is the Sean Murphy trade, far and away above anything else we talked about. Luis Robert, Taylor Ward, Sean Murphy is the guy. The trade that I think is more likely to happen, just given the money, I think Ramon Laureano, that's the move that, again, the Padres should have made that trade a week ago. It is worth noting, Padres do not trade with the Orioles frequently, if at all. So there's not much of a trade relationship there between Mike Elias and AJ Preller. So, and again, that is a factor. People might not think it's a factor. It's a factor, I promise you. But we talk about, okay, rental, which is going to be a low price the Padres can absolutely pay. Not really much of a salary commitment at all. It's something they could absorb, or they could figure out a way to move, $2 million off the books a lot easier than, someone on a $14-15 million deal off the books. And just the production and the easy left field fit. I think, again, Sean Murphy's the dream. That's the reach. That's, hey, if we get this, awesome. You understand the complications behind it. So I think the more realistic move that's like, yeah, this would be a good move the Padres can make, should make, and probably should have made already. It's Ramon Laureano. I also would throw in a package deal, some combination of Ryan Jeffers, Willie Castro, and Harrison Bader with the Twins. Padres could address 2 of their 3 needs in one deal, or all 3 of their biggest needs in one deal. So those are the trades I think make the most sense for the Padres, are the most feasible for the Padres, more so than, again, a Murphy deal or a Mitch Keller deal.
Yeah, look, I think you said it. You hit it the nail on the head, because I was looking in that same perspective, because, the Willie Castro, Harrison Bader, and Jeffers can definitely help you out in a sense also. And it's going to probably be more prospect capital that has to be moved around, or as you said, maybe a third team involved in this right here. But, the Ramon Laureano is definitely a play that you can make happen. And I would probably been reaching out to Baltimore now, to try to get that happen going on right now, because look, Baltimore, they need arms, and they need some young arms, although they have some young arms in minor leagues. But when you're able to get a chance to make a move like this for a feasible price, in Laureano, I would get that done, and make it move, because Baltimore's not going anywhere no time soon this year anyway. So you got to start trying to do things and make them happen, man. So, just see how it goes.
All right, Mike, we've got almost a full hour of trade talk. This was a lot of fun. Love talking trade possibilities with you. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
Not much. It's just going to be interesting, to see, as we talked about earlier, got a chance to see some of the legends of the game. And in my case, I got a chance to go to Cooperstown to see one of the greatest players, legend Ichiro, and one of my pals is CC, a foe and a teammate, go in but now I'm just kind of interested to see how the baseball season winds down now, and who's on the move and who's going to be beneficial and helpful down the stretch, man. It's going to be interesting as a sense, teams are vying pole position, as you say, like in playoff pole, and it's going to be another creative aspect of year in San Diego to see what happens. And I'm pretty sure after this show, we're going to get some people on here that has the inside information, and they're going to know who's getting traded and who knows what. And so I'll be looking for that as always, and probably answering a few questions. So Friar Territory fans, go ahead and throw them out there, because we know you bring out something that's going to dispute my take or Cal's take, and we're going to see what happens.
Absolutely. And hey, you always know that with AJ Preller, anything is possible. So we just gave you 10 names. Watch the Padres go do something absolutely crazy and off the wall that no one anticipated. That's pretty much their style. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Once again, this has been another edition of Friar Territory. Go ahead and give us a like, review, 5 stars, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, all the good stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Again, please, please, please subscribe. It helps us out big time. We're on the up and up. We want to keep it going. For Mike Cameron, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thank you for watching and listening. See you later this week to talk more trade deadline.